Welcome back, everyone. We're diving into something super practical this time. How to express your opinions and handle those agreements and disagreements politely in English.
It's something we do every day, right? But it can be tricky to get it just right, especially for those of you who are, intermediate learners.
Exactly. I mean, we all want to sound confident and clear, but not, step on anyone's toes.
It's true, and it's about more than just the words themselves. I know it's about how we use those words to really get our message across effectively.
So where do we even begin? Are there any go-to phrases that can help us express our opinions in English?
I think a good place to start is with that classic phrase, I think. It's simple, it's direct, and it gets the job done in most casual situations.
Yeah, I think is definitely my go-to. But I'm curious, are there ever times when maybe it's not the best choice?
That's a great question. I think can sometimes sound a little too strong, especially if you're talking about something sensitive or disagreeing with someone.
So what's the alternative? How can we soften the blow a bit and make our opinions sound more open to discussion?
Well, instead of saying, I think this movie is terrible, you could try something like, I tend to think this movie wasn't my favorite.
I tend to think. It definitely has a different vibe. It sounds more like I'm sharing my perspective rather than making a definitive statement.
Right. I tend to think suggests that you've considered other viewpoints and, you're open to hearing different opinions.
Okay, so it's about being mindful of how our words can impact the conversation. Are there any other phrases that create this sense of open-mindedness?
Another good option is I'm inclined to believe. It's similar to I tend to think, but might sound a bit more formal.
So if I were in let's say, a business meeting, I could say, I'm inclined to believe this new strategy has potential instead of just, I think this will work.
Yeah, it sounds more considered, right? And by using these phrases, you're not only expressing your opinion, but you're also subtly inviting others to share their thoughts.
That's really interesting. It's like we're creating a space for dialogue rather than just stating our own viewpoint.
Exactly. It's about fostering a sense of collaboration and respect in the conversation.
Okay, so we've talked about expressing opinions, but what about those times when we want to show agreement? I mean, yes is fine, but it can feel a little basic sometimes.
You're right. Yes is a bit praying, especially if you want to show strong agreement.
So what are some alternatives that convey genuine enthusiasm and really show that we're on board with what someone is saying?
One of my favorites is absolutely. It's short, it's energetic, and it's perfect for those moments when you're fully on board.
Absolutely. It's yeah, a verbal high five. I like it. But what about in situations where absolutely might not be appropriate? Like if I'm in a more formal setting.
You could use something like, I couldn't agree more. It's a classic phrase that works well in both casual and professional settings.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah, I like that. It sounds sincere and emphasizes the strength of my agreement. What about when I want to agree but also signal that I've, actually put some thought into it?
That's a fair assessment, is a great choice for those moments. It shows you've considered the other person's perspective and you concur with their judgment.
That's a fair assessment. Okay, that's a good one. It's thoughtful agreement, right? Actually, that reminds me of something.
Oh, tell me.
Well, it's not exactly about agreement, but it's about how, sometimes even with the best intentions, we can accidentally say something that sounds a little off.
I know exactly what you mean. It's happened to all of us. That time once I was at this dinner party and I tried to compliment the host's cooking by saying, this tastes just like my mom used to make.
Oh, no. I bet that didn't go over so well.
You can say that again. It was one of those moments where you just want to disappear into the floor. But it's a good reminder that sometimes, even when we're trying to be polite, our words can be misinterpreted,
Yeah, it's all about being mindful of the context and the cultural nuances, right?
Absolutely. But let's move on to something a little trickier. Disagreeing politely. How do we express dissent without derailing the conversation, or worse, offending someone?
This is the part I always struggle with. I never want to come across as argumentative or disrespectful.
I think the key is to remember that disagreement doesn't have to be confrontational. It's about presenting your perspective while still acknowledging the other person's point of view. A good starting point is using phrases like, I'm not entirely sure about that.
I'm not entirely sure about that. It's a way of expressing doubt without directly contradicting the other person, right?
Exactly. It opens up the conversation for further exploration without, shutting down the other person's ideas. And you can build on that by saying something like, I see where you're coming from,
I
but
see where you're coming from, but it's like you're acknowledging their perspective before presenting their own counterpoint.
right. It shows that you're listening and that you're trying to understand their point of view.
And that can make a big difference, especially in cultures where, harmony and saving face is really important.
Absolutely. But let's go back to those disagreement phrases. Are there any that work particularly well in, let's say, a more formal setting, like a business meeting or an academic discussion?
That's a good question. The phrases we've discussed so far seem perfect for everyday conversations, but I'm wondering how we can express disagreement in a more professional and nuanced way.
One phrase that comes to mind is, I understand your point, however. It's clear, it's concise, and it maintains a professional tone while still conveying your dissent.
I understand your point, however. It sounds very diplomatic. It's like you're saying, I respect your opinion, but I have a different perspective.
Exactly. And if you want to add an extra layer of politeness, you could always say, I respect your opinion, but...
I respect your opinion, but it's like the golden rule of disagreeing respectfully, right?
Yeah. But sometimes, even when we're trying our best to be polite, disagreements can get a little heated.
Right. And then it's easy to get flustered and, maybe say something we regret later.
So what do we do in those situations? How do we de-escalate things and bring the conversation back to a calmer, more productive space?
I've been in those situations where my heart starts racing and I can feel the tension rising. What are some strategies for navigating those moments without letting things get out of hand?
One of the most effective techniques is to ask clarifying questions instead of immediately jumping in with a counter argument. You could say something like, could you explain your thinking on that? Or help me understand why you feel that way.
That's brilliant. By asking clarifying questions, you're showing that you're genuinely interested in understanding the other person's perspective, which can really help to diffuse the tension.
Exactly. It shifts the focus from arguing to understanding, which is often, the first step towards finding common ground.
I love that. It's about turning a potential conflict into a collaborative exploration of ideas.
Right. And speaking of common ground, that's another helpful tactic. Even in the most heated disagreements, there are usually areas where you can find points of agreement.
That makes so much sense. By focusing on those shared perspectives, we can build a bridge instead of digging a trench.
I love that analogy. And, even if you can't find a complete agreement, simply acknowledging those areas where your perspectives align can, create a sense of camaraderie and make it easier to navigate those points of difference.
So we've learned some great phrases for expressing opinions, agreeing and disagreeing politely. But I have a feeling there are also some common pitfalls we should be aware of, right?
Oh, absolutely. Even with the best intentions, we can sometimes stumble into communication traps that hinder our ability to express ourselves effectively.
So what are some of those conversational faux pas we should try to avoid? What are those communication missteps that can unintentionally derail a discussion?
Well, one of the biggest ones is being too blunt. While honesty is important, just blurting out something like you're wrong is rarely productive.
Ouch. Yeah, I could see how that would shut down a conversation pretty quickly. It's like throwing a conversational grenade into the mix.
Exactly. And on the other end of the spectrum, being overly passive can also be a problem. Those rambling responses where you're not really taking a stance.
Well, maybe. I'm not sure. You might be right or maybe not.
Right. While you might think you're being agreeable, it can actually be confusing and frustrating for the other person.
So it's all about finding that sweet spot between being clear and assertive without being overly aggressive or passive.
Exactly. It's a delicate balance, but it's a skill worth mastering.
Definitely. And speaking of mastering skills, there's another crucial element we need to discuss, and that's tone.
Oh, yes, tone. Sometimes it's not what you say, but how you say it, right?
A slight change in tone can completely transform the meaning of a sentence. It's like the secret weapon of communication.
And this is where things can get tricky, especially when it comes to navigating formal versus informal settings. The way we phrase things can shift dramatically depending on the context.
Can you give us some examples of how this plays out in real conversations?
Sure. Let's say you're in a formal meeting and you need to disagree with a colleague's proposal. A polite and professional way to do this would be to say, I'm afraid I disagree.
I'm afraid I disagree. Yeah, that sounds very formal and appropriate for a professional setting. But how would you express disagreement in a more casual way, like if you're just hanging out with friends?
In that case, you could simply say, nah, I'm not really on board with that idea.
See, that's what I love about language, how it can be so adaptable to different situations. But I can also see how using the wrong tone could lead to some pretty big misunderstandings.
Absolutely. Imagine using that formal, "I'm afraid I disagree" with your close friends. They'd probably think you were being sarcastic.
Oh yeah, totally. It would be like showing up to a casual brunch in a ball gown, totally out of place.
Exactly. It's all about matching your language to the context of the conversation. But, I think it's time we put all these phrases and strategies into action with a real-life scenario.
I was just thinking that. Let's see how these phrases could be woven into a natural conversation.
All right, imagine a group of friends trying to decide on a weekend trip.
Ooh, I love this. It's such a classic dilemma. Everyone has their own idea of the perfect getaway.
Right. One friend, let's call her Sarah, is all about hiking and wants to spend the weekend exploring the great outdoors.
Okay, Sarah's our adventurous one. Got it.
Then we have Ben, who's more into relaxing and would prefer to stay in a fancy hotel with all the amenities.
Ben, our resident comfort seeker. And then there's always that one friend who's, down for anything. Let's call her Maya.
Perfect. Maya is our easygoing, go-with-the-flow friend. She's just excited to spend time with her friends no matter what they do.
Okay, so we've got our cast of characters and the setting. Let's see how these phrases come into play as they try to, decide on their weekend adventure.
All right, let's have Sarah kick things off. Remember, she's our hiking enthusiast.
From my perspective, hiking is the absolute best way to experience nature. The fresh air, the stunning views, it's just, invigorating.
Great. Now let's have Ben chime in with his preference for a more luxurious getaway.
I see your point, Sarah, and I do love a good view. But I'm not entirely sure about roughing it in the wilderness. I'd much rather unwind in a cozy hotel with a spa and room service.
Excellent. Now Maya, our flexible friend, tries to find some common ground.
I couldn't agree more with both of you. Hiking is amazing, and so is a little pampering. Maybe we could find a place with great hiking trails and some nice hotels nearby. That way we get the best of both worlds.
Perfect. See how they're using those phrases we talked about to navigate their different opinions. Sarah clearly stated her perspective, Ben expressed his hesitation politely, and Maya found a way to bridge the gap.
It's like watching a real conversation unfold. It's amazing to see how these simple phrases can make such a difference in, how we communicate.
It is, isn't it? And the best part is that these skills can be applied to any situation, from casual chats to more formal discussions, whether you're negotiating a business deal or just deciding where to go for dinner. Being able to express your opinions clearly and respectfully it's essential.
It's fascinating to think about how much is going on beneath the surface of our everyday conversations. We're not just exchanging words, we're navigating social dynamics, cultural nuances, and, even emotional undercurrents.
Absolutely, and that's what makes language so captivating. It's a tool for connection, for persuasion, for understanding. By mastering the art of expressing opinions, we're not just improving our language skills, we're enhancing our ability to connect with others on a deeper level.
I'm curious, though, we've talked a lot about the importance of, softening language and being respectful, especially when we're disagreeing. But what about those situations where someone is being intentionally rude or aggressive? How do we stand up for ourselves without, stooping to their level?
That's a great question, and it's something we all encounter from time to time. It's important to remember that you don't have to engage in a conversation that feels, disrespectful or unsafe. Sometimes the best course of action is to simply disengage or walk away.
Yeah, we don't always have to fight every battle, right?
Exactly. But what if it's a situation where you can't just walk away, like a work meeting or a family gathering?
Right. How do we assert ourselves without, escalating the situation?
One strategy is to use assertive but non-confirmation language. For example, you could say something like, "I understand you feel strongly about this, but I disagree, and I'd appreciate it if you would respect my perspective."
I understand you feel strongly about this, but I disagree, and I'd appreciate it if you would respect my perspective. That's a really powerful statement. It acknowledges their feelings while also setting a firm boundary.
Right. And if the other person continues to be aggressive or dismissive, you can always reiterate your boundary or simply, disengage from the conversation.
It's a good reminder that we don't have to tolerate disrespect. And sometimes the most empowering choice is to, remove ourselves from a negative environment.
Absolutely. It's not about being passive. It's about prioritizing your own well-being.
This has been such an insightful deep dive. I feel like I'm walking away with a whole new toolkit for expressing myself clearly and respectfully in English.
Me too. And remember, even native English speakers are constantly learning and refining their communication skills. It's a lifelong journey.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground today. We've explored phrases for expressing opinions, agreeing, disagreeing politely, and even handling those tricky situations where, conversations get a bit heated. What are some key takeaways you'd like our listener to remember?
I think the most important thing is that communication is a two-way street. It's not just about expressing yourself, but also about actively listening to and respecting the perspectives of others.
And don't be afraid to experiment with these phrases and find what feels natural for you. The more you practice, the more confident you'll become.
Absolutely. And remember, making mistakes is part of the learning process. Don't be too hard on yourself if you stumble or say something that doesn't come out quite right.
It's about progress, not perfection. And I think it's important to celebrate those small wins along the way. Every time you successfully navigate a challenging conversation or express yourself clearly and confidently, give yourself a pat on the back.
Couldn't agree more. Celebrating those small wins helps us build confidence and resilience, which are essential for effective communication.
As we wrap up, I'm wondering if you have any final words of wisdom or encouragement for our listener. What's that one piece of advice you would give to someone who's, maybe feeling a bit hesitant or unsure about expressing themselves in English?
I would say embrace the journey. Learning a language is a wonderful adventure filled with challenges and rewards. Don't be afraid to make mistakes, to ask questions, to step outside of your comfort zone.
Beautifully said. Embrace the journey, be kind to yourself, and celebrate those small wins. This deep dive has been incredibly insightful.
It's been a pleasure exploring these nuances of language with you. And remember, language is a powerful tool. Use it wisely, use it kindly, and use it to connect with the world around you.
And to our listener, as you head back out into the world of English conversations, we want to leave you with this final thought. What situation comes to mind where you could use these phrases to express yourself more confidently?
We encourage you to take these tools and start using them in your everyday life. You'll be amazed at the difference they can make.
Until next time, keep diving deep.
I think maybe one more thing to add about making mistakes. It's really about viewing those mistakes as opportunity to learn and grow, right?
Yeah, totally. It's like every time we stumble, we get a chance to pick ourselves up and try again, hopefully with a little more wisdom and a bit more confidence.
Exactly. And remember, even native English speakers make mistakes all the time. It's part of being human.
So true. It's about embracing that imperfection and using it as fuel for our language learning journey.
I couldn't agree more. So as we wrap up this deep dive, maybe we can leave our listeners with a challenge.
I like that. What kind of challenge are you thinking of?
Well, how about this? I challenge everyone listening to think of one situation in their life where they could use these phrases we've talked about today. A situation where they could express themselves more confidently and clearly in English.
Ooh, I love this. Like a call to action, right?
Exactly. It could be, a conversation with friends, a meeting at work, or even just, a chat with a neighbor. The point is to start putting these skills into practice in real life situations.
And to our listener, as you head back out into the world of English conversations, we want to remind you that we believe in you.
We've given you the tools, and now it's time to put them to good use. Go out there and express yourself with confidence, with clarity, and with respect.
And until next time, keep diving deep. Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. This time, we're going to be looking at synonyms.
Ooh.
And at first you might be thinking, well, synonyms are pretty basic.
Right.
We learn about those in middle school English class or something. But today's deep dive is going to be about the shades of meaning that synonyms have.
Okay.
So it's one thing to know a bunch of fancy words, right? Like to have a big vocabulary, but it's another thing to know how to use those words.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where the right synonym can make all the difference, especially if you're really trying to improve your communication skills, and maybe even sound more like a native speaker.
So we're talking about connotations, right? Like how even if words mean basically the same thing, they have different vibes.
Exactly. Yeah, it's the emotional baggage that each word kind of carries around with it beyond just that simple dictionary definition.
Right. And it could be like cultural baggage too.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So for example, I was thinking the words house and home.
Yeah.
They both describe a place where people live.
Right.
But home just has a warmer feeling.
Exactly. Yeah. House is more just the physical structure, right? Like walls and a roof and all of that. But home implies so much more. It's where your heart is.
Yeah. And the people you live with. And
exactly.
The leverage you make there and stuff.
Yeah. So if you think about it from a marketing perspective,
Right.
Imagine you're a real estate agent. You're trying to sell a place. place, you're not going to say, come look at this lovely house.
Come look at this house.
Yeah, you're going to be like, come experience the warmth of this charming home.
It's like they're selling a feeling, right?
Exactly.
Not just bricks and mortar.
Yep.
So, okay. I'm ready to look at some more example.
Okay.
What are some other words that we should look at?
How about we start with astute and shrewd?
Okay.
So both of these words imply intelligence, sharp thinking.
Right.
But they have very different connotations.
Yeah, and I could see how, like, at first glance, they might seem pretty interchangeable.
Yeah, definitely.
But now I'm curious, like, what are those different connotations?
So astute generally has a positive connotation, right? Like if you call someone astute, it's a compliment.
Okay.
It means that they're insightful, they're able to like see things that other people might miss.
Oh, so it's like you're complimenting their judgment and their ability to think clearly.
Exactly. Yeah, it kind of evokes a sense of wisdom and good judgment.
Okay.
Now, shrewd, on the other hand, still suggests intelligence, but it often hints at like a more cutting or calculating kind of mind.
Oh, so it's more like street smarts or business savvy.
Exactly. Like you might describe a successful business person as shrewd.
Okay.
But it can also suggest that they're maybe willing to bend the rules a little bit to get what they want.
Ah, so it's like astute is more about being wise, but shrewd is more about being clever or maybe even a little bit manipulative.
Yeah, exactly. It's like that fine line between being smart and being a little bit sneaky.
Okay, I get it.
Yeah.
So astute, good, shrewd, maybe not so much.
Yeah, it depends on the context.
Right.
Like if you're writing a letter of recommendation for someone, you probably want to stick with astute.
Unless they're applying to be like a spy or something.
Right, exactly.
So we've got astute versus shrewd.
Yeah.
What's another pair that we could look at?
Let's see. How about avoid and evade?
Okay, avoid and evade. I feel like I use these words interchangeably sometimes.
Yeah, I think a lot of people do.
And now I'm realizing that maybe I shouldn't be.
Yeah, there is a subtle but important difference between the two.
Okay, lay it on me.
So avoid simply means to stay away from something, right?
Okay.
Like you might avoid a traffic jam by taking a different route.
Right.
But evade suggests a deliberate attempt to like escape or dodge something.
Oh, so it's more intentional.
Exactly. And it often implies a sense of deception.
Okay, so like avoiding a question sounds polite.
Right.
But evading a question makes you sound like you're hiding something.
Yeah, exactly. Like you're trying to get away with something.
Okay, I'm starting to get a sense of how much these little word choices matter.
Right.
It's like I'm seeing language in a whole new light.
Yeah, it's really fascinating when you start to dig into these nuances.
So if I'm in like a professional setting, I really need to be careful about using evade.
Yeah, I would say so, because it could send the wrong message, especially if you're dealing with like sensitive topics or legal matters.
Oh yeah, like you don't want to sound like you're trying to skirt the law or anything.
Exactly.
Okay, this is already blowing my mind.
Yeah, it's a lot to take in, but it's really important to be aware of these subtle differences.
I'm hooked.
Good.
I want to learn more.
All right, let's keep going then. And it really highlights how language isn't, just about conveying information.
Right.
It's about, creating a certain impression.
Right.
And shaping how other people see us.
Yeah, this is all super fascinating, but I have to admit, it's a little overwhelming.
Oh, yeah, I can understand that.
Like, am I supposed to analyze every single word I use from now on?
Well, no, not exactly.
Okay.
The goal isn't to become like a walking thesaurus or anything.
Right.
It's more about just developing an awareness of these subtle shades of meaning.
Okay.
So that you can use them strategically.
So how can we get better at this, like without overthinking every word that comes out of our mouth?
Well, one of the best ways, honestly, is to just read a lot.
Okay, so like the more I read, the better I'll get at instinctively knowing which synonym sounds.
Right, exactly. You'll start to pick up on those subtle differences just by being exposed to different writing styles.
Okay.
Like novels, newspapers, even like those long-winded emails from your boss.
Right, all those count.
Yeah, and pay attention to how writers use language to create different effects.
Okay, that makes sense. And is there anything else we could do to kind of actively improve?
Yeah, absolutely. One thing I recommend to my students is to keep a vocabulary journal.
A vocabulary journal?
Yeah, just a little notebook where you can jot down interesting word pairs that you come across.
Okay.
And then try writing your own sentences using those words.
That's a great idea. It's like having a cheat sheet for sounding smarter.
Exactly. And it can really help you internalize those subtle differences between synonyms.
That's awesome. What else?
Another thing you can do is to practice what I call context shifts.
Context shifts.
Yeah, so basically you take a simple sentence.
Okay.
And then imagine yourself saying that sentence in different situations.
Okay, I like this.
Like a job interview, a casual conversation with friends, maybe even a dramatic speech.
Okay, so it's like thinking about how the same words can take on different meanings.
Exactly. The context really shapes how those words are perceived.
Wow, that's really cool. Can we try an example?
Sure.
Okay.
Let's say the sentence is, I need more time.
Okay, I need more time.
How would you say that in a job interview?
I'd probably say something like, I would appreciate a bit more time to consider your offer.
Yeah, perfect. You see how much more formal and polite that sounds?
Right, and less demanding?
Exactly. And now how would you say it to a friend?
Probably just, can you give me a few more minutes?
Exactly. It's much more casual and relaxed.
Right, so it's the same basic message, but the way we deliver it changes depending on the context.
Exactly. It's like a linguistic code switch.
I love that linguistic code switch.
Right.
I'm gonna use that.
Please do.
Okay, so we've talked about reading, we've talked about keeping a vocabulary journal, we've talked about context shifts. Is there anything else we can do?
Yeah. Another really important thing is to just pay attention to how native speakers use language.
Okay, so like listen to real conversations.
Exactly. Listen to podcasts, watch movies,
Okay.
pay attention to the tone of voice, the body language, all those subtle cues that can give you a deeper understanding of how words are being used.
So it's not just about the words themselves, it's about the whole package.
Exactly. It's about becoming a more attentive and active listener.
Okay, I could definitely work on that.
But remember, the goal isn't to be perfect.
Okay, that makes me feel better.
It's to communicate effectively.
Right.
And the more you practice, the better you'll get at it.
Okay, so before we move on, are there any other word pairs that you want to go over?
Sure. How about childish versus childlike?
Oh, okay.
Both relate to children, obviously.
Right.
But one is definitely not a compliment you want to receive as an adult.
Yeah, I have a feeling I know which one. Childish usually implies immaturity.
Exactly.
Like throwing a tantrum or something.
Yeah, whereas childlike has a more positive connotation.
Right, it's more about like a sense of wonder or playfulness.
Exactly. Like you wouldn't describe a grown adult throwing a tantrum as childlike,
Right.
but you might praise their childlike enthusiasm for a new project.
Okay, so childish is acting out of line.
Yeah,
Childlike is holding on to those positive qualities of childhood.
exactly.
Okay, I get it.
Good.
What else you got?
Let's see. How about slim versus skinny?
Ooh, okay, this is a tricky one.
It is.
Because both words describe a slender physique,
Right.
but the connotations can be very different, especially when we're talking about people's bodies.
Yeah, slim generally has a more positive connotation.
Right, it sounds more like healthy and fit.
Exactly. Whereas skinny can sometimes sound a little bit judgmental.
Right, like you're implying that someone's too thin.
Yeah, or even unhealthy.
Okay, so it's like slim is a compliment,
Yeah.
but skinny can be a backhanded compliment even if you don't mean it that way.
Exactly. It's all about being mindful of how those words can be perceived.
Especially in a society that's so obsessed with body image.
Right.
Okay, I think I'm ready for one last pair.
All right. How about assertive versus aggressive?
Oh, okay, this is a good one.
Yeah, because these words often get confused, especially in professional settings.
Yeah, and I can see why. Because they both kind of have to do with standing up for yourself.
Right.
But there's a big difference between being assertive and being aggressive.
Exactly. So assertive means that you're confident,
Okay,
you know your worth, and you're able to communicate your needs effectively.
right.
But aggressive implies that you're pushing your needs onto others,
Okay.
often at their expense.
So it's like assertive is, I respect myself and I'm going to communicate clearly.
Yeah,
But aggressive is, I'm going to get what I want, even if I have to steamroll over everyone else.
exactly. You hit the nail on the head.
Okay, I'm so glad we talked about this one because I think I've definitely used these words incorrectly in the past.
Yeah, it's a common mistake.
But now I know better.
Good, I'm glad.
This has been such a mind-blowing deep dive.
Oh yeah, it's been fun.
I feel like I've learned so much about the power of language.
Language is a powerful tool.
It really is.
And the more we understand it, the more effectively we can use it.
Absolutely. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
But what's the takeaway, like for our listeners who are out there in the world,
Yeah,
trying to use these synonyms correctly?
right.
What advice would you give them?
Well, I think the most important thing is to just keep practicing and exploring.
Okay.
Don't be afraid to experiment with new words.
Right.
See how they feel in different situations.
So it's like we need to become word adventurers or something.
I love that word, adventurers. Yeah,
Right.
That's a great way to put it.
Like we're constantly pushing the boundaries of our vocabulary.
Exactly. And remember, making mistakes is part of the process.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like, don't let the fear of using the wrong word hold you back
Right.
from expressing yourself.
It's more important to just communicate
Exactly.
than to be perfect.
Yeah, communication is about connecting with other people,
Right.
not about achieving linguistic perfection.
Well said.
Thank you.
I think this deep dive has really been a fantastic reminder that language is powerful.
It is.
And the more we understand it, the more effectively we can use it
Absolutely.
to connect with each other
Yeah,
and to make our voices heard.
couldn't agree more.
So to all of our listeners out there,
Yes.
keep learning,
Keep experimenting.
keep those conversations flowing.
Exactly. Until next time, happy wordsmithing.
And that's a wrap on another deep dive.
It is.
We'll catch you next time for more linguistic adventures.
All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome back. Ready for another deep dive. Today, we're tackling something that I know a lot of you have asked about. Phrasal verbs.
Yeah, these little combos can be tricky.
Oh, absolutely. But they're also the key to sounding, well, more natural, more fluent. We've got a whole bunch of resources here.
Yeah.
And we're going to break them down into everyday situations so they're easier to remember and to actually use,
It's all about making them practical.
Right. So let's kick things off with a scenario we all face, morning routines.
The daily grind.
Yeah, exactly. I'm curious, have you ever struggled with the whole wake up versus get up thing?
Oh, for sure. They seem interchangeable.
I know, right?
There's a subtle difference.
I hit sneeze like a million times before I actually, roll out of bed.
Well, think of it this way. Wake up is simply becoming conscious.
Okay.
Get up is the action, the physical getting out of bed.
Ah, so it's like consciousness versus action.
Ex-
That makes so much more sense. Okay, so let's say you've finally gotten up, you're going about your day. Have you ever found yourself running out of something, like coffee or time?
Oh, constantly.
I know, right? My coffee disappears in like 5 seconds.
Running out of really captures that feeling of depletion.
Yeah.
But, it could be applied to more than just physical things. Think about, projects at work. You can run out of steam on a project. That initial motivation just fizzles out. Or you can run out of options when you're facing a tricky dilemma.
I like that. So it's not just, running out of actual stuff. It's like a broader sense of, nothing left.
Exactly.
Now, speaking of running out of things, I have a confession. I was once so excited to meet some friends for a movie that I completely forgot to turn off the lights at home.
Oh, no.
Yeah, my electricity bill was not happy.
We've all been there. And while we usually use turn off for lights or appliances,
Right.
think about how it applies to emotions, too. You can try to turn off your anxiety
Okay.
or turn off those feelings of anger.
Oh, that's interesting.
It's like controlling those internal switches.
So we've got a control panel of emotions.
Excited.
And sometimes, yeah, we just need to hit off.
Take charge.
All right, let's switch gears a little bit. Let's talk about the wonderful world of work and study. Emails, deadlines, those ever-growing to-do lists.
The joys.
So how do you usually catch up on work when you're, feeling behind? Sometimes I just end up staring at my computer screen, like completely overwhelmed.
I hear you. Catching up on definitely implies that feeling of being behind and trying to get back on track.
Yeah.
But what if, instead of seeing it as a burden,
Okay.
we saw it as a challenge, an opportunity to test our organizational skills?
I like that. A challenge, not a chore.
Exactly.
Okay. Let's say you're working on a big project and you need to make sure everything is, perfect. How important is it to look over things carefully before hitting that submit button? I've definitely learned that lesson the hard way a few times.
Oh, more times than I can count. Looking over isn't just glancing at something.
Right.
It's actively engaging with it, paying attention to the details. Actually, one time I was looking over a contract and almost missed this crucial clause buried in the fine print. It was a good reminder to be thorough.
Oh, wow. That's a close call. Sometimes I just wish I could call off all my meetings and escape the office for a bit.
I know, right?
Just take a walk, maybe grab a coffee.
But if we think about call off more broadly,
Okay.
it's not just about canceling meetings. It can be any planned event, a social gathering, a business trip, even a project that's just not working out.
So it's like hitting pause, reassessing, and then deciding whether to, keep going or change direction.
Exactly. Sometimes calling off something can be the most productive thing you can do.
Okay, enough about work. Let's talk about something more fun, like social interactions and relationships. Do you have someone in your life who you just totally click with, someone you really get along with?
Oh, absolutely. And getting along with someone goes beyond just liking them, right?
Yeah.
It's about mutual respect,
I
understanding,
like that.
and a shared sense of humor.
It's like, yeah, a dance where both partners are in sync.
And what's fascinating is getting along with someone doesn't mean you always agree. It's about navigating those differences, finding that sweet spot where everyone feels heard and valued.
So true. Sometimes things don't work out, though, and we have to, make that tough decision to break up with someone.
Breaking up is usually associated with romantic relationships,
Right.
but it can apply to friendships, partnerships,
Yeah, for sure.
even breaking free from negative habits.
Oh, I like that. It's like recognizing when a connection, whatever kind it is, isn't working.
Yeah,
And having the courage to change it. Hopefully, though, if there are disagreements, we can make up and reconcile.
absolutely. Making up signifies that restoration of harmony, willingness to forgive,
Yeah.
understand, and move forward together.
Now, have you ever been in a conversation where you needed to, like, steer the topic in a certain direction?
Oh, yeah, all the time.
I always feel so awkward doing that.
Well, that's where bringing up something strategically can be really helpful.
Okay.
It's about subtly guiding the conversation. For example, if you're at a networking event and you want to learn more about someone's work, you could casually bring up a recent industry trend
That's good.
or an article you read
Yeah.
as a way to spark a conversation.
That sounds so much smoother than just abruptly changing the subject.
A bit more graceful.
Speaking of social situations, another confession. I'm always late. Like, always showing up late, even when I try my best to be on time.
Oh, I feel that.
Once I was meeting friends for a concert, and I got stuck in traffic. By the time I arrived, they were already halfway through the opening act.
And showing up isn't just about physical arrival either.
Oh.
It's about making an appearance, whether it's at an event, in someone's life, even metaphorically, like when an opportunity suddenly shows up.
I never thought of it that way. So it can be both literal and figurative.
Exactly. It adds another layer of meaning.
Okay, let's talk about travel. You know that feeling of anticipation when you're about to set off on an adventure?
Oh, yeah, I love that feeling.
Whether it's a road trip, a flight across the ocean, even just exploring a new part of your city.
Yeah.
There's something so exciting about it.
Setting off really captures that sense of purpose,
Right.
that feeling of embarking on a journey.
And once you set off, chances are you'll be picking up or dropping off something along the way.
For sure, and for sure.
Souvenirs, travel buddies, new experiences, who knows?
But picking up and dropping off aren't just for physical things either. Think about skills. You can pick up a new language while traveling,
That's true.
or maybe drop off some bad habits along the way.
It's like an exchange of both tangible and intangible things. And speaking of travel, navigating public transport can be its own adventure, especially figuring out when to get on or get off.
Oh, tell me about it.
I once missed my stop because I was so engrossed in a book that I completely zoned out.
I've done that too.
Getting on and getting off represent transitions, right?
Yeah, entering or exiting a particular space or situation.
It's easy to get lost in your own world and miss those important cues. Well, we've covered quite a bit in this first part of our deep dive. Everyday routines, work, social interactions, even travel.
It's amazing how these phrasal verbs pop up everywhere.
They really do, and what's cool is they make our speech sound so much more natural and informal.
It's like they add flavor to our language.
Exactly, and I think what we're seeing is that using these phrasal verbs isn't just about sounding like a native speaker, it's about understanding those subtle nuances of English
Right.
and using them to communicate more effectively.
It's about unlocking a whole new level of fluency. And I think our deep dive has just scratched the surface. It really is amazing. You know, how these little verbs and prepositions can add so much depth to the way we express ourselves.
Like, yeah, there are these hidden gems sprinkled everywhere in our conversation.
Yeah, exactly.
And we don't even realize it. So we've talked about how phrasal verbs show up in our daily routines, work, social stuff. But what about those unexpected situations?
Ah, yes.
You know, life throws a curveball.
Life is full of surprises.
Exactly. And it's amazing how phrasal verbs are perfect for describing those moments.
Yeah.
Have you ever had plans change suddenly?
Oh, all the time.
And you had to figure out a new solution, like right on the spot?
Oh, countless times.
I remember one time I was supposed to fly to a conference.
Yeah.
And my flight got canceled last minute. Total chaos. I had to figure out new travel arrangements while juggling everything else. It was a mess.
Figure out is like the ultimate problem-solving phrasal verb.
It is.
It implies adaptability.
Yeah.
You know, thinking on your feet.
Yeah, like our inner detective comes out.
Exactly.
Okay, what about those difficult situations?
Oh, yeah,
The ones that really test your patience, you know?
for sure.
Have you ever had to deal with something like that?
Well, dealing with something means confronting it head on.
Okay.
It's about like navigating those tough situations with grace. One time I had to deal with a huge setback at work, a project that just completely fell apart. It was stressful, but it definitely taught me about perseverance.
It's like those moments force us to level up our skills.
Right.
Become more resilient, you know?
Exactly.
Sometimes, though, when things get tough, we just want to back out. Have you ever felt that way?
Backing out could be a good move sometimes.
Yeah.
Especially when you realize a situation just isn't right for you anymore. Like it doesn't align with your goals
I see.
or your values.
So it's about knowing your limits
Yeah.
and making choices that are good for you.
I once backed out of a business partnership when I realized our visions weren't the same. It was a tough call, but it allowed me to find opportunities that were a better fit.
Sometimes you have to back out to let something better come in.
Exactly.
Now, when we're dealing with unexpected things, sometimes we need help.
For sure.
Have you ever had to reach out to someone for support?
Oh, absolutely. Reaching out is so important. It's acknowledging that we don't have to go through things alone.
Yeah.
It's about connection. I went through a personal crisis once,
Uh-huh.
and I was so hesitant to reach out to my friends.
Yeah, I get it.
But when I finally did, their support was incredible.
Sometimes it's hard to be vulnerable.
It is.
But it's in those moments when we reach out that real connection happens.
I completely agree.
Okay, let's shift gears again. When things get overwhelming,
Mm-hmm.
how do you calm down?
Oh, that's a good question. Calming down is about finding those things that help us regulate our emotions, right? For me, it's nature. A walk in the park, listening to birds,
I love that.
just feeling the sun.
Yeah.
It helps me reconnect with myself.
Nature has this amazing ability to soothe us, doesn't it?
It does. It does.
Sometimes all it takes is a few moments of quiet to down and see things more clearly. Have you ever had to stand up for something you believe in?
Oh, absolutely. Standing up for something takes courage.
It does.
It's about advocating for what's right, even when it's hard. I once saw someone being treated unfairly, and I felt compelled to stand up for them.
That's so brave.
It wasn't easy, but it taught me about using my voice for good. And sometimes standing up for something means speaking out against injustice,
Right.
raising awareness about important issues.
It's like, yeah, each time we speak out, we plant a seed for change.
And those seeds can grow into powerful movements.
Okay, so we've talked about phrasal verbs for unexpected situations, challenges, even standing up for what's right.
Uh-huh.
But what about those moments of joy? The celebrations?
Oh, yeah, those are important too.
Phrasal verbs can add so much energy to those expressions,
They can.
Have you ever had to cheer someone up?
Of course.
Like when a friend was going through a rough time,
Yeah.
you just wanted to brighten their day.
Cheering someone up is all about spreading kindness.
Like we have this superpower to make someone's day better.
Yeah, exactly.
And sometimes those acts of kindness lead to unexpected connections. Have you ever run into someone you knew just by chance?
All the time. Running into someone unexpectedly can be so fun,
It can.
like these serendipitous encounters.
It really is.
I ran into a former colleague at a coffee shop once,
Mm-hmm.
and we ended up talking for hours.
It's like the universe is playing matchmaker.
Sometimes it feels that way.
Have you ever had a dream or a goal that you were really hoping would work out?
Working out implies that sense of effort, the perseverance to reach a goal. I always wanted to write a book,
Wow.
and I spent years working on it, facing rejection after rejection. But I kept going, and eventually it all worked out.
That's incredible.
The book got published. It was amazing.
It shows that the journey is just as important as the destination.
Yeah.
And when things finally work out, it make all the effort worth it. Spoop of things working out. Have you ever had an idea or a plan that suddenly came together perfectly?
Oh, I love that feeling. Coming together implies that sense of harmony
Yeah.
when everything just clicks. I was working on this complex project once,
Uh-huh.
and we were hitting roadblocks left and right.
I've been there.
But then we started communicating better, collaborating more,
Okay.
and suddenly it all came together. We achieved our goals, and it was a real testament to teamwork.
It's like when individual efforts create something much bigger, right?
Exactly.
And sometimes that coming together goes beyond teams and projects.
It does.
It's like communities uniting for a cause.
Yeah.
Or even global movements working towards a better world.
It's a beautiful thing.
We've covered so much ground in this part of our deep dive. Phrasal verbs for unexpected situations, celebrations, making a difference. It's really incredible how these little verbs and prepositions can add so much nuance to our language.
And what's really exciting is that this is just a glimpse.
Yeah.
There are so many more phrasal verbs out there to explore.
Right.
It's a reminder that learning a language is a journey that never ends.
It's incredible how phrasal verbs manage to sneak into every part of our lives.
They really do.
We've talked about everyday stuff, work, relationships,
Yeah.
even dealing with the unexpected.
Uh-huh.
But there's one area we haven't touched on yet, our thoughts, ideas, that whole internal world,
Right. It's fascinating how phrasal verbs help us express those things.
They do. How do we even talk about those mental processes without them?
Exactly. It's like they give us a language for thinking. Think about when you're trying to think something through before making a big decision.
Oh, tell me about it. I overthink everything. I'll mull it over for days, weighing the pros and cons, imagining all the possibilities. It's exhausting, but I think it's important to, give those big decisions the time they need.
I agree. And it's interesting how you used both think something through and mull it over. They both involve deep thought. But mull it over suggests a more passive process, like letting an idea simmer in the back of your mind.
So mulling it over is like slow cooking a decision until it's perfect.
Exactly. But sometimes mulling isn't enough. Sometimes you need to actively work something out.
Right, yeah.
That implies a more focused problem-solving approach.
Okay, so it's like shifting from relaxing to like, okay, gotta figure this out.
Exactly. And sometimes when we're working something out,
Yeah.
it's helpful to look back on past experiences, to see what we can learn from them.
Looking back on our past can be really insightful, can't it?
It can. It's like using our past as a guide. I often find myself looking back on my career choices, the good and the bad. And it helps me appreciate how much I've learned and grown.
It's like our past becomes this like compass.
Yeah.
But we're still the ones steering the ship.
Exactly. Now, sometimes when we're trying to understand something new,
Yeah.
we need to break it down into smaller pieces, right?
Oh, absolutely. Especially when it's something complicated.
Breaking something down is all about simplifying,
Right.
making things easier to grasp.
Okay.
As a teacher, I do this all the time. You have to break down complex ideas for students.
Yeah.
Find ways to make them relatable.
It's like you're guiding them on this learning journey.
That's a great way to put it. And sometimes that journey involves looking at things from different perspectives.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Especially when we're stuck in our own way of thinking.
Looking at things from different angles is so important for critical thinking. It's about challenging our assumptions.
Yeah. Yeah.
I had a disagreement with a colleague once,
Mm-hmm.
and we were both so focused on our own viewpoints.
Yeah, I've been there.
But then we tried to look at the situation from each other's perspective. We didn't have to agree,
Right.
but it helped us understand each other better.
It's amazing how just shifting our perspective can like open up a whole new understanding,
It can, and that understanding can lead to coming up with new ideas.
Oh, yeah.
Coming up with new ideas is all about creativity,
Yeah.
It's those moments when inspiration strikes. Some of my best ideas have come from unexpected places,
Really?
like a chat with a friend or just observing nature.
I like that.
It's about staying curious and open.
Those aha moments. And sometimes those aha moments help us come into our own.
Exactly. Coming into your own means embracing your strengths,
Right.
finding your voice,
Oh, fair.
living authentically. I spent years trying to fit in, but then I realized I needed to embrace what makes me unique. That's when I truly came into my own.
It's a powerful message. Accepting yourself, celebrating your individuality. It makes me think about language itself,
Yeah.
It's always evolving, coming into its own. New words, new meanings.
It's beautiful, isn't it?
It is. Well, we've explored phrasal verbs in so many different ways.
We have.
Everyday life, work, relationships, the unexpected, even our thoughts and dreams.
And it's just the beginning.
Right. It's amazing how these little verb and preposition combos can add so much depth to our language.
They really are powerful tools for communication.
They are. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with this. Think about the phrasal verbs you use. How do they shape the way you see the world? And how can you use them to express yourself more fully and connect with others in a meaningful way? Keep exploring, keep learning, and keep those ha moments coming. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. All right, so you know how to really nail those job interviews, like really grab their attention and, make them think, wow, this person's the real deal.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to dive deep into this episode. It's called Speak with Confidence. 21 must-know words for interviews.
Ooh,
It's only 30 minutes, but it's jam-packed with great stuff.
30 minutes. Okay, wow, no time wasted.
Right. So it really focuses on, using the right words to show off your skills and everything, like language that shows you're competent and confident.
Well, it's not about just sounding impressive, is it? It's got to be, the qualities that employers are looking for.
Right. Exactly. It's like talking their language, but, still being yourself.
Yeah.
So the episode breaks these power words down into categories. We're going to start with words to describe yourself, and these are not your typical resume words.
Okay.
These are words like adaptable, proactive, and resilient.
Oh, those are good, yeah. Especially today. You know how companies are always changing and facing new challenges?
Right.
Like being adaptable, being able to, adjust and thrive
Yeah.
in any situation, that's gold.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And then proactive, the source defines it as taking initiative and anticipating future needs, like a go-getter,
Right.
not just reacting to problems, preventing them.
Oh, I like that. Employers would love that.
Right.
Absolutely. It shows that you're a thinker.
Yeah.
You're not just waiting around, you're taking ownership.
Yeah.
It's like leadership, even if you're not a manager.
Totally. And then resilient, bouncing back from difficulties.
Oh, yeah.
Who doesn't want that on their team?
It's so crucial, especially like in those high-pressure jobs.
Yeah.
That grit, handling setbacks.
Yeah.
Learning from mistakes and coming back stronger.
Yeah.
Employers want to know you can handle the curveballs.
For sure. Okay, so moving on to describing your skills. Again, not the usual buzzwords.
Okay.
The episode highlights versatile, strategic, and detail-oriented.
So these are, more subtle ways to show off
Right.
versatile, for example, means you can handle lots of different things, different roles.
Yeah.
It's like you're a jack of all trades, but, you're competent.
And the source makes it clear that versatile means you can do many things well, not just that you can do a little bit of everything.
Right.
You're a valuable asset to the team, someone who can jump in wherever needed.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's strategic. That makes you sound like an expert.
Yeah, it shows you're thinking big picture. You're not just doing tasks, you're, aligning with the goals.
It's like you have a mind for business, not just busy work.
Exactly.
And the source defines it as planning and executing with a focus on achieving those goals.
Oh, wow.
Like you're results oriented,
Right.
you're contributing to the success of the company.
Yeah.
Then we have detail oriented, which just sounds simple, but
yeah.
in this crazy fast-paced world we live in,
Mm,
it's so valuable.
it is.
Employers want people who can get things right.
Right.
Someone who takes pride in their work.
Absolutely. Yeah, it shows that you're committed to quality
Yeah.
and accuracy, which can mean, handling sensitive information,
Right.
complex processes,
Okay, now let's talk about those accomplishments. Because everyone has them.
Hmm.
The episode uses words like accomplished, results-driven, and transformative.
Yeah, those are great.
They sound good.
They frame your achievements in a way that makes you sound credible.
Yeah.
Accomplish, for instance, highlights your successes, but you're not bragging. You're just owning it.
It's about demonstrating your track record,
Yeah.
but being authentic,
Yeah,
not just buzzwords.
right. The source says it means you're highly skilled and successful in achieving goals.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what about results-driven? Another winner.
I like that one.
It shows that you're all about the outcome.
Yeah.
You deliver. It's not just about effort, it's about impact.
Right. You're focused on specific, measurable outcomes, not just putting in the time you're making things happen.
Right.
And then transformative. Now, this is a big one. Like you went above and beyond. You didn't just keep things the same. You made things better.
Yeah, it's like those times when you made a real difference.
Yeah.
A lasting impact.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, isn't that word a bit overused? When is it really okay to use it without sounding like you're exaggerating?
That's a good point. Transformative is powerful. So you got to use it carefully.
Right.
Not for, small changes. It's for big shifts.
Right.
Think about when you did something major, launched a big project or changed how things are done.
Yeah.
Those are transformative.
You got to have the proof, basically.
Yeah, exactly. It's not just a casual word.
Right. So how do we actually use these words without sounding like a robot?
Right.
I don't want to sound stiff.
Authenticity is key.
Yeah.
That's what the source says.
Yeah.
You want to sound good, but it's got to be real.
Yeah.
They recommend the STAR method.
Oh, the STAR method.
Yeah.
Situation, task, action, and result. I've heard of it, but isn't that a bit basic?
It's a great framework, but you can take it further.
Okay.
It's not just about telling a story. It's
Yep.
about picking stories that highlight, these power words.
I see.
So instead of just saying, I'm results driven,
Yeah.
you describe a time when you had to take charge and adapt and get a good result.
So you show them instead of telling them.
Exactly. You paint a picture.
Yeah, I like that.
And you sprinkle in those power words as you go.
Okay.
Make them part of your story.
The episode also talks about words to use during the interview.
Yeah.
Words like align, optimize, and leverage.
Okay.
I'm not sure about leverage, though. What if it sounds like I'm trying too hard?
It can sound corporate-y.
Yeah.
But it's how you say it. Leverage is good when you're talking about using resources to get something done.
Right.
Showing you think strategically,
Okay.
making the most of what you have.
So, I leveraged my experience in X to achieve Y. That sounds better than just I used my experience.
Exactly. It sounds intentional.
Yeah.
And align is another powerful word.
Oh, yeah. How so?
Well, you can use it to connect your skills with the company's needs.
Uh-huh.
My goals aligned with the company's mission.
It shows you've done your homework.
Exactly.
You're really interested.
Yeah, and optimize is great for problem solving.
Yeah.
It shows you're always trying to improve things, make things more efficient.
So not just I solved a problem, but
Yeah.
I optimized this process to achieve this.
Exactly. Shows you're always growing,
That's good.
Employers love that.
So we've got all these words, but how do they work for real? The episode has this sample dialogue.
Oh, yeah. Let's hear it.
Let's try it out. I'll be the interviewer.
Okay, go for it.
So tell me about a time you had to adapt to a challenging situation at work.
Let's see. So in my last job, we had to launch this new product line super fast.
Okay.
I took on extra work.
Yeah.
I used my project management skills to keep things moving and make sure we met deadlines.
Yeah.
We had some problems along the way, but
Yeah.
we launched the product and beat our sales goals by 15%.
That's amazing. You used those power words so naturally.
Well, practice makes perfect.
Right, that's what the episode says. Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to get comfortable with these words so they're just part of how you talk.
It's like anything else, the more you do it, the better you get.
Yeah. And you'll be more confident.
What about different company cultures, though? Like something that works for a startup might not work for,
Yeah.
a big company.
A more traditional company.
Yeah, you got to do your research.
Right.
Know the company's values, how they talk.
Like a company that's all about innovation. They might love words like transformative,
And let's interrupt this.
disruptive. Yeah.
But a more, conservative company, they might like reliable and efficient.
It's about finding that balance.
Yeah.
Showing your skills, but also fitting in.
So it's not just about memorizing words. It's about,
Right.
using them the right way.
It's about being a good communicator.
Exactly. And that's a skill you need for your whole career,
Right.
not just interviews.
It's like you're adapting. Right. But you still want to stand out.
Yeah, it's a balance.
It is a balance.
That's where, knowing yourself comes in.
Oh, yeah.
Understanding what you're good at and like your values
Yeah.
and being able to, explain that to employers.
I think that's so important, Sometimes we're so busy trying to impress people
Right.
that we forget to just be ourselves.
Yeah, exactly. And being genuine is what really matters.
Mm-hmm.
You can know all the fancy words, but if you're not being real, it shows.
It does. So
Yeah.
it's like amplifying the best parts of you.
Exactly. These power words can help you do that.
I like that.
Express yourself better,
Yeah.
more confidently.
So we've talked about a lot of different power words, being authentic. We even did a little interview practice.
We did.
What's the one thing our listeners should remember?
I think the main thing is words are powerful. They can change how people see you.
Yeah.
They can help you get what you want.
Right.
But it's not about just using big words.
Yeah.
It's about choosing words that really show who you are and what you can do.
So be careful what you say, basically.
Be intentional. Yeah.
And the good thing is, it's a skill you can learn.
Yeah, the more you practice, the better you'll get.
And you'll be more confident, not just in interviews, but everywhere, right?
Exactly. It's about your whole career.
Yeah.
It's about taking control,
Mm-hmm.
and writing your own story.
So to our listener, try these power words out.
Yeah.
Don't just memorize them.
Right?
Like really understand them and see how they work for you.
And remember, be yourself.
Yeah.
The best version of yourself.
Because when you do that, when you're speaking your truth, that's when amazing things happen.
Okay. Until next time, keep on diving deep. Okay. So job interviews, especially those first few,
Yeah.
can be
Yeah.
really nerve-wracking.
They can.
You spend so much time working on your resume, and then you actually have to go talk about it.
Right.
And convince someone you're a good fit.
Mm-hmm.
And you set this really cool guide about interview tips for beginners.
Yes.
So I thought it'd be fun to kind of go through it together,
Absolutely.
see what we find.
Yeah.
So I guess kind of starting at the beginning,
Yeah.
it seems like a lot of people think that an interview is all about
Yeah.
how you perform on that day.
Yeah.
But this guide really emphasizes how important the preparation is.
Right.
That happens before you even get to the interview.
Yeah. And that's what I find so interesting is that a lot of folks don't think about that.
Yeah, they don't.
They just think, okay, I need to show up and be my best self that day.
Right,
And while that's true,
right.
you really have to do all this work beforehand.
And one of the first things
Yeah.
that they talk about in this guide is really researching the company.
Oh, absolutely.
Like really,
Just really going deep.
yeah.
It's not just looking at their website, not just the About Us page.
Yeah.
You really want to understand what are their values?
Yeah.
What's their mission? What are they working on right now? What are maybe even their challenges that they're facing?
Right.
And it's about connecting the dots between what they do and what your experience is
Right.
and what you can bring to the table.
So almost like
Yeah.
if you're applying to a company,
Right?
you should know their latest project or their latest product. If you're applying for like a clothing company,
Yeah.
you should know their latest line.
Ex-
or if they're sustainable.
exactly.
What are they doing for sustainability?
It shows that you're not just looking for any job,
Right.
but you're specifically interested in their company and the opportunity to contribute to that.
Right. And I think it shows that you're a serious candidate.
It does.
Like you put the time in.
Yes, absolutely.
Which a lot of people don't.
Exactly. And that research can also help you
Yeah.
tailor your answers to their specific needs
Right.
and ask more insightful questions.
Nice.
So
Yeah, it all kind of builds on each other.
it does.
I think one thing that people
Yeah.
always struggle with is that dreaded question.
Oh, yeah.
Tell me about yourself.
Oh, yeah.
It's like
It's so broad.
so broad.
Right.
I never know what to say. I feel like I'm rambling or
Yeah.
being too robotic.
Yeah, it is a classic opener,
Mm-hmm.
and it's often where people go wrong.
Right.
They either launch into a chronological recitation of
Well,
their resume.
Like I was born,
Right, exactly.
and then I went to school,
Yeah,
and then I graduated,
Yeah.
and then,
right. Or they overshare
yes,
irrelevant personal details.
yes.
So this guide emphasizes the importance of crafting a concise
Mm-hmm.
and compelling narrative
Mm-hmm.
that highlights your key skills
Mhm.
and experiences,
Mhm.
aligning them with the role's requirements.
So like you're telling a story,
You are.
but you're highlighting how your skills fit what they're looking for.
Exactly. You want to
Right.
create a story
Yeah,
that showcases your potential value to them,
right.
not just listing off
Yeah.
all your achievements.
Checking boxes.
Right, but connecting
Yeah.
those achievements
Yeah.
to what the company is looking for.
And the guide actually has a sample answer in here,
It does.
which I thought was really cool.
Yes. And it really focuses on
Yeah.
achievements that are relevant
Mm-hmm.
to the job description.
Right.
And it's like a good balance between personal and professional.
Right. You want to strike that balance between professionalism
Yeah.
and showcasing your authentic self.
Yeah, I always get nervous about that part, like how personal.
It's too personal,
Yeah.
you know? I don't want to tell them my whole life story.
You don't need to. You want them to get a sense of who you are as a person,
Yeah.
but within the context of the professional setting.
Yeah. So this sample answer is a good starting point.
It is.
But how do we actually make our skills and our experiences
Right.
come alive
Right.
for the interviewer?
Yeah, that's where the
STAR method
STAR method comes in.
comes in.
But that kind of sounds
I know it can sound,
a little gimmicky to me.
it can seem like a formula at first,
Right.
but trust me,
Okay.
the STAR method is incredibly effective.
Okay.
And here's why.
Okay.
It allows you to structure your responses in a way
Yeah.
that's clear, concise, and memorable.
Okay.
So instead of just saying, I'm a good problem solver,
Right.
you're providing a concrete example that illustrates your problem-solving skills
Okay.
in action.
Yeah.
Okay, so walk me through it.
Okay.
How would I use that? If someone asked me,
Yeah.
like, about my leadership skill.
Okay, let's say the interviewer asks,
Hmm.
tell me about a time you demonstrated leadership.
Right.
Okay, so instead of giving a vague answer,
Mm-hmm.
you can use the STAR method to paint a vivid picture.
Okay.
So you start by describing the situation.
Mm.
So perhaps you were leading a group project in college.
Okay.
Then you outline the task, your specific role,
Mm-hmm.
and responsibility within the project.
Okay.
Next, you delve into the action,
Okay.
the steps you took to lead the team effectively,
Okay.
delegate tasks,
Mm-hmm.
overcome challenges,
Okay.
and finally, you highlight the result,
Mhm.
the positive outcome you achieved.
Okay.
Maybe finishing the project ahead of schedule, receiving high praise from your professor.
So it's almost like you're telling a story
You are.
with a beginning, middle, and end,
Exactly.
but you're highlighting your skills within that story.
Yeah, it's about showcasing your skills through a narrative
Right.
that's engaging and easy for the interviewer to follow.
So you're giving them a little glimpse into how you would actually work. like a
Exactly.
project.
And from an interviewer's perspective,
Yeah.
that's incredibly valuable.
Okay.
It shows me that you can not only talk the talk,
Right.
you can walk the walk.
You can back it up.
You can back it up.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So we've talked about prepping for the interview, answering those kind of questions,
Yeah.
using the STAR method. But now the guide also talks about
Yes.
asking questions.
Yes.
But isn't that the interviewer's job?
It might seem counterintuitive,
Yeah.
but asking insightful questions can be just as important as giving great answers.
Okay.
It shows that you're genuinely interested in the role,
Okay.
that you've done your research, and that you're actively thinking about how you can contribute.
So it's not just about asking, like, what are the benefits?
No,
Where do
no.
I get vacation?
No, you should be asking more specific questions.
Yeah.
Think about it this way.
Okay.
An interview is a two-way street.
Okay.
It's an opportunity
Mm-hmm.
for both you and the company
Okay.
to assess whether it's a good fit.
Gotcha.
Asking thoughtful questions not only helps you gather information,
Mm-hmm.
but it also demonstrates
Yeah.
your initiative
Mm.
and critical thinking skills.
So you're interviewing them just as much
Absolutely.
as they're interviewing you.
You got it.
Okay. So we've talked about prepping for those common interview questions
Yeah.
and, using the STAR method
Great.
to make those answers really memorable.
Yes.
But this guide also spends a lot of time talking about asking questions.
Mm-hmm.
And I get that.
Yeah.
It shows that you're engaged.
Right.
But are there like certain types of questions
Yeah.
that are better than others?
Absolutely. It's not just about asking any question. It's about asking the right questions.
Okay.
The ones that show you've gone beyond that surface level research
Right.
and are really curious about the role and the company.
Okay. I'm intrigued.
Okay.
Give me an example.
Okay. So let's say you're interviewing at a company
Mm-hmm.
that's undergoing a big change.
Okay.
Maybe they're expanding into a new market or adopting some new technology.
Right.
Instead of asking, tell me about your future plans,
Right.
you could dig a little deeper.
Okay.
You could say something like,
Mm-hmm.
how do you see this transition impacting
Yeah.
this specific role?
Right. So you're connecting their big goals
Exactly.
with the actual job you're applying for.
Yes.
I see that.
It shows you're not just thinking about your career.
Right.
You're also thinking about how you can contribute to the company.
Yeah, that's a good point. So I never really thought about it that way.
Yeah.
So do you think it's better to ask questions that show you know about the company or questions that show
Yeah.
what your aspirations are?
That's a good question. I
Yeah.
think it's all about finding that balance.
Right.
You want to show off your research, your understanding of the company,
Yeah.
but you also want to express genuine curiosity and enthusiasm for the role.
So a healthy mix of both.
Yes, and remember, an interview is a two-way street.
Right.
It's a chance for both sides to see if it's a good fit.
Okay, so this is really making me think about this whole asking questions thing
Yeah.
differently.
Yeah.
It's not just about filling the silence.
Oh.
It's another chance to really...
It is.
Yeah.
It's a chance for you to shift your mindset
Okay.
from being the passive interviewee
Right.
to being the active participant.
Yeah, because I usually go into an interview thinking, like, okay, they're going to ask me questions.
Right.
I'm going to answer them the best I can.
Yeah.
But I need to remember
Yeah.
that I'm also interviewing them.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've got before the interview,
Right.
like prepping for the interview. We've got during the interview,
Yep.
asking and answering questions.
Yes.
Now, what about
Yep.
after the interview?
Yes, the post-interview phase.
Yeah.
Which can be,
Oh, it's the worst.
I know,
The waiting.
the waiting is brutal.
I hate it.
It is.
Do you have any advice for getting through that?
Well, this guide
Yeah.
emphasizes the importance of a thank you note.
Really?
Yes.
People still do that?
Oh, I think it's more important than ever.
Okay.
It's a simple gesture,
Yeah.
but it goes a long way
Okay.
in reinforcing your interest and leaving a positive impression.
Okay. But is it old-fashioned?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think in today's world
Yeah.
where everything is so digital
Right.
and communication is so fast
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes impersonal,
Right.
a well-written thank you note
Right.
really stands out.
Okay. I'm convinced. But what should I say in it?
So you want to strike a balance
Okay.
between expressing gratitude and reiterating those key strengths.
Okay.
You can mention something you talked about during the interview,
All right.
a project that resonated with you, a question they asked
Okay.
that sparked your interest.
So really show them
Yes,
that I was listening.
exactly. You were paying attention,
Yeah.
not just going through the motions.
And the guide also says that you can use this as an opportunity
Yes,
to clarify anything or
Yes.
if you forgot to mention something.
yes, absolutely.
That's a good point.
It's a chance to circle back.
Yeah. I like that.
So it's not just thanking them,
Right.
it's continuing that conversation
Yeah.
and reinforcing your candidacy.
Okay. So it's like step 2
Exactly.
of the interview process.
It is.
Okay. So we send the thank you note. We're waiting.
Yes,
This is the hard part.
it is.
But the guide also says
Yes.
we should use this time.
To self-reflect.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Because usually I just try to forget about it.
I know it's tempting
Yeah.
to just want to distract yourself,
Yeah.
but it's a good idea
Okay.
to think about
Yeah.
what went well during the interview,
Mm-hmm.
what areas maybe you felt less confident.
Okay.
Did you stumble over a question?
Okay.
Could you have given a stronger example?
Yeah, that's a good point.
For a skill.
Yeah, it's tempting to just focus on whether I get the job or not.
Right.
But even if I don't,
Exactly.
that feedback is
Yeah.
really important.
Each interview is a learning experience,
Okay.
regardless of the outcome.
That's a good way to look at it.
Yeah, you're refining your approach, identifying your strengths and weaknesses,
Yeah.
and just gaining more confidence.
So even if I don't get the job,
Right.
it's not a failure.
No, it's not.
It's a learning experience.
It is.
Okay. I love
And
it.
remember,
Yeah.
every company is different.
Right.
Some move really quickly. Some take their time.
So how long should I wait
Yeah,
before I reach out again?
that's a good question.
Because the waiting is killing me.
I know it's hard.
Yeah.
The guide suggests waiting
Okay.
at least a week or two
Okay.
before sending a gentle inquiry.
Okay.
But remember, it's all about the tone.
Yeah.
You're not demanding an answer.
Right.
You're simply expressing continued interest
Okay.
and checking in on the timeline.
So I shouldn't be like, why haven't I heard back?
No.
Okay.
More like,
Yeah.
hey, I just wanted to reiterate my enthusiasm
Mm-hmm.
and see if there are any updates.
God, it's so polite,
Yes,
but still interested.
exactly.
Right.
And even if you don't get this job,
Yeah.
the skills you've developed
Right.
throughout this whole process
Yeah.
are going to help you in the future.
It's like practice makes perfect.
It really is.
The more you interview,
Yeah.
the better you'll get at it.
The more comfortable you'll become. And with each experience, you're going to refine your approach, identify your strengths,
Yeah.
and ultimately find the perfect fit
Okay.
for you.
So we've talked about, prepping for the interview and how to answer those tricky questions and even how to ask good questions ourselves.
Right.
But then there's this whole other part
Yes.
that we haven't talked about yet.
Right.
The follow-up.
Yes. The follow-up.
And this guide has a whole section about that.
It does.
So I wanted to get your take on it. Like, why is that so important?
I think the follow-up is often seen as an afterthought,
Right.
just a formality.
Yeah.
But it's a really great chance to
Okay.
solidify that connection you made with
Yeah.
the interviewer
Mm-hmm.
and really express your interest
Okay.
and leave that lasting impression.
But sometimes I feel like I'm being annoying.
Yeah.
If I send another email
Yeah.
and they haven't gotten back to me,
Right. It's like, am I bugging them?
it is a delicate balance.
Yeah.
You don't want to seem pushy
Right.
or desperate,
Yeah.
but a well-timed,
Okay.
thoughtful follow-up
Yeah.
can really work in your favor.
So how do I do that?
So according to this guide,
Yeah.
the first follow-up
Okay.
should always be a thank you note,
Okay.
ideally within 24 hours
Of the interview.
of the interview.
Okay.
But this isn't just
Yeah.
a quick thanks for your time.
Right.
This is a chance
Mhm.
to reiterate your strengths,
Okay.
to connect them back to the role,
Mm-hmm.
and even mention something you talked about during the interview.
So it's like
Yeah.
another cover letter, but shorter.
It's like a mini cover letter,
Yeah.
but personalized
Yeah.
and conversational.
Okay.
Yeah, think of it as a way to remind them why you're a good fit
Mm-hmm.
and to reinforce that positive impression.
So should I handwrite it or email it?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
While a handwritten note,
Can add a personal touch
right.
in today's world.
Mhm.
An email is usually better.
Okay.
It's more practical.
Right.
And it's faster.
Makes sense.
So you sent your thank you note.
Yeah.
Now we wait.
The waiting?
I know.
How long
Yeah.
should we wait?
This guide suggests at least a week or two
Okay.
before sending a gentle inquiry.
Okay.
But again, it's all about the tone.
Right.
You don't want to be demanding.
Right.
You're simply expressing continued interest
Okay.
and checking in.
So like,
Yeah.
hey, I'm still interested.
Exactly.
What's the timeline looking like?
Yes, just a simple check-in.
Okay.
And remember,
Yeah.
even if you don't get the job,
Right.
you've gained valuable skills
Yeah.
going through this process.
That's true.
So think of it
Yeah.
as an investment in your future.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah.
This whole deep dive has been really helpful.
Oh, good. I'm
I
glad.
feel like I've learned a lot
Yeah.
about interviewing,
Good.
and it's not just about memorizing answers or, putting on a show.
Right.
It's really about preparation
Yes.
and being strategic
Yes.
and really showing your enthusiasm.
Exactly.
So for anyone listening out there who's getting ready for an interview,
Yeah.
remember, you got this.
You do.
Just prepare.
Yes.
Be strategic.
Be yourself. Be yourself. Let your passion shine through.
Yeah. And the right job will come along.
It will.
Well, this has been another great deep dive.
It has.
Thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, it's been a pleasure.
And to everyone listening,
Yes.
keep learning
Keep growing.
and keep diving deep.
Absolutely. Okay. Ready to dive into some persuasive writing?
I am.
We're going deep with a podcast script for English language learners.
Sounds interesting.
But, even if you're already a pretty good writer, there's always something new to learn.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I think this one's got some hidden gems for all of us.
Well, what I find interesting is how this script, it really just lays out how to persuade anybody, no matter what their, language level is.
Yeah.
We're talking about influence.
Right.
Like the structure, the clarity, the emotional connection.
Yeah.
It works when you're writing a business proposal or even just trying to get your friend to try a new restaurant.
Exactly. It's not just for politicians or marketers or whatever. Persuasive writing. I mean, think about it.
Yeah.
Like that last email you wrote where you really needed to get your point across.
Oh, yeah.
Or a cover letter for a job.
Right.
You think a little persuasive magic could have helped?
Oh, I'm sure it could have.
I think so.
Definitely.
Yeah.
You know what? The source material uses this great example.
Okay.
Trying to convince your boss to implement flexible working hours.
No.
It's not just writing some sentences.
Right.
You have to make an argument, highlight the benefits for the company and for the employees too.
Right. You got to show them how it's a win-win.
Exactly. A win-win, hard to resist.
Okay, I'm sold. Persuasion is power. It is.
But how do we actually do it?
Right.
Well, this source material breaks down a persuasive piece into three parts. The introduction, the body paragraphs, and the conclusion.
Okay.
I mean, it sounds pretty basic.
Yeah.
But there's a reason this structure has worked forever.
I know, right? It's not just some random formula.
Right.
This goes all the way back to classical rhetoric.
Oh.
The art of persuasion, it's been around for centuries.
Wow.
What's fascinating is that it still applies today.
So cool.
You follow this structure, and it's like a roadmap for your reader.
It guides them through your argument in a clear and logical way.
I love that. Okay, so guiding the reader. So this source material,
Yeah.
it gives some pretty good advice about writing a really strong introduction.
Okay.
It all starts with a hook.
Okay, yeah.
Something to grab your reader's attention, make them want to keep reading.
Got it.
They give this example of starting with a statistic about remote work and how it's increased productivity.
Oh, I like that.
It's all about getting their attention right away.
For sure. Then you follow up with a thesis statement.
Okay.
Basically, what's your main point?
Right.
You can say something like, implementing flexible work hours will boost employee morale and increase productivity.
Boom. Okay, you got me. I'm hooked.
Perfect.
But what about the body paragraphs?
Yeah.
I mean, that's where you really get into it.
This is where the Peel method comes in.
Peel. Okay, tell me more.
Each paragraph focuses on one single point.
Okay.
And it provides evidence, like building a case.
Brick by brick.
Exactly.
Okay, give me an example.
Let's say flexible work hours, right?
Yeah.
One paragraph could be about how it impacts productivity.
Okay.
You start with a point. Flexible work arrangements lead to increased productivity.
Got it.
Then you give evidence, like studies, companies that have tried it, show it actually works.
So you're not just saying it, you're proving it.
Right. Then goes the explanation.
Okay.
You say, maybe employees can work during their peak hours,
Makes sense.
leading to better focus,
Right. So it's not just the what, but the why.
Exactly.
Okay. And what about the L and Peel?
The L is for link.
Okay.
You wrap up the paragraph and link it back to your thesis, your argument for flexible work.
Okay. So you're saying
Yeah.
by letting employees work when and where they're most productive,
Yes.
it's a win-win for everyone.
Exactly.
This Peel method is genius.
It is pretty clever.
A recipe for a killer paragraph.
I know, right?
Point, evidence, explanation, link.
You got it.
Okay, but before we get too carried away,
Yeah.
what about the conclusion? How do we wrap this whole thing up?
Right. The conclusion is your grand finale.
Okay.
It's your last chance to leave an impression.
Right.
The source material says, summarize your key arguments.
Okay.
Restate your thesis clearly.
Got it. So we're bringing it all back to that main argument.
Exactly. And you can get creative here.
Okay.
The source material suggests ending with a call to action.
Oh, telling them what to do next?
Yeah, like in our flexible work hours example, you could suggest a trial period
Oh, that's good.
or tell them to learn more on a website or something.
So it's more than just reading. It's okay, what's next?
Exactly. Give them something to do.
Okay, so we covered the basic structure.
Yeah.
but I have a feeling there's a lot more to this.
Oh, there is.
What's next on our deep dive agenda?
Okay, now let's talk about the glue that holds a persuasive argument together.
Oh, intrigue me.
Connectors and transition phrases.
Okay.
Little words and phrases that make a huge difference.
Connectors, huh?
Yeah.
You know, sometimes I feel like my writing is kind of choppy.
Okay.
Like, I have all these good ideas, but they're not really flowing together.
Yeah, that's where connectors come in.
Okay.
They're like bridges between your ideas, transitions that guide your reader from one point to the next.
Smooth it all out.
Exactly. And you know what's interesting? These tiny little words, they can have a huge impact.
Really?
Oh, yeah. On how clear and persuasive your writing is.
So it's not just what you say,
Right.
but how you connect it all together.
You got it.
The source material actually breaks these connectors down into like different categories.
Yeah.
Adding information, contrasting ideas, cause and effect.
Right. It's like a whole toolbox.
It is, right.
For writing.
For persuasive writing.
Yeah. Just like any tool, you got to know how to use them the right way.
Right. Okay, so let's start with adding information.
Okay, so words like furthermore, in addition, moreover.
Okay.
Those are great when you want to build on a previous point. You're giving more support for your argument.
Okay.
Like, let's say you're writing about exercise.
Okay.
You could say, regular exercise improves cardiovascular health. Moreover, it strengthens muscles and bones.
Okay, so you're like building up a case.
Exactly. Each point adds to the one before it.
Got it. What about contrasting ideas?
Oh, yeah, those can be tough.
They are.
But connectors, like however, on the other hand, nevertheless,
Okay.
those can help you be more balanced,
Right.
more nuanced.
So it's not just one-sided.
Right. Like, let's say you're arguing that technology makes life easier.
Yeah, okay.
You could say, however, it's important to be mindful of technology addiction and privacy concerns.
Oh, that's a good point.
Right. You're acknowledging the other side.
Yeah.
It makes your argument stronger.
Because you're not ignoring the potential problems.
Exactly. You're addressing them head on.
Okay, what about cause and effect?
Oh, that's a good one.
I struggle with that sometimes.
Well, connectors, like as a result, therefore, consequently,
Okay.
those can really help.
Okay.
You know, showing that one thing leads to another.
Right.
For example, climate change. You could say greenhouse gas emissions have increased dramatically. As a result, global temperatures are rising.
Wow, you just made that so clear.
See, connectors are powerful.
They are. I'm starting to see how they can really
Yeah.
make a difference in writing.
For sure.
Okay, let's move on to something else important
Okay.
that the source material talks about. Tone and formality.
Oh, this is where it gets interesting.
Okay, tell me more.
It's not just what you say, it's how you say it.
Right.
Tone and formality can completely change how your message is received.
I get that.
Like, you wouldn't talk to your friend the same way
Right.
as you would to your boss.
Definitely not.
Right, you'd get fired.
Exactly. It's all about knowing your audience and the context.
The source material talks about two main types of tone,
Okay.
professional and passionate.
Yeah. Oh, okay. What's the difference?
Professional is more objective, straightforward,
Got it.
focuses on facts and logic.
Okay.
Passionate, well, it's more emotional. You let your energy show.
So when would you use one over the other?
It depends.
Okay.
What are you trying to do? Who are you talking to?
Right.
If you're giving a presentation at a conference, you probably want to be professional.
Okay. Yeah.
But if you're writing a blog post about something you're passionate about,
Right.
let that passion shine through.
So match your tone to the situation.
Exactly.
Now, what about formality?
Okay, so the source material talks about formal and semi-formal writing.
Okay, I'm not sure I know the difference.
Formal is like super professional.
Right.
Academic papers, official documents, that kind of thing.
Got it.
More complex sentences, bigger words, no contractions.
Okay.
Semi-formal is more relaxed, like an email or a blog post.
More conversational?
Exactly.
So it's like formal is wearing a suit
Yeah.
and semi-formal is business casual.
Perfect analogy.
Okay, good.
You got it.
So again, it's all about knowing your audience and the situation.
Right, just for the occasion.
I'm realizing that persuasive writing is more than just
Yeah,
putting some sentences together.
it is. There's a lot to it.
It is, but
Yeah.
even with all this knowledge,
Right.
I still make mistakes sometimes.
We all do.
Are there any like common ones we should be aware of?
Definitely. The source material has a whole list.
Okay, like a cheat sheet?
Yeah. Common mistakes and how to fix them.
Okay, give me the top one.
Overloaded sentences.
Oh, yeah.
Trying to cram too much into one sentence.
I do that all the time.
It happens.
It gets all confusing.
It does.
It's like a jumbled mess.
The solution. Break it down.
Oh, Okay. Simpler.
Shorter sentences.
Right. Keep it clear.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
What else? Using big words when you don't need to.
Oh, trying to sound smart.
Yeah, but it usually backfires.
Right.
Just use clear, simple language.
So people actually understand what you're saying.
Exactly. Don't overcomplicate it.
Okay, what's next?
Grammar and punctuation.
Ugh, I hate grammar.
It can be tricky.
But it's important.
It is. Nothing looks more unprofessional.
Yeah, like you didn't even try.
Exactly.
That's it.
But grammar's hard.
That's why you proofread
Right.
and use tools like Grammarly.
Oh, yeah. Technology to the rescue.
Right. It's a lifesaver.
Okay, what's the last mistake on the list?
This one's important.
Okay.
Not backing up your claims.
Oh, yeah.
You can say whatever you want,
Right.
but if you don't have evidence...
Right. It means nothing.
Exactly. It's just empty words.
So you got to prove it.
Use statistics, studies, examples.
Real life stuff.
Exactly. The stronger your evidence, the stronger your argument.
Okay, wow. This has been like a crash course
I know, right?
in persuasive writing.
It has.
I feel like I learned a lot,
Good.
but I know there's always more to learn.
Oh, absolutely. The key is to keep practicing.
Exactly. The more you write, the better you'll get.
I'm feeling inspired.
That's great.
Before we wrap up, though,
Yeah.
I want to ask you something.
Okay.
If you could write the most persuasive message in the world,
Mm-hmm.
what would it be?
Ooh, that's a good one.
And who would you send it to?
That's tough. You know, if I could write the most persuasive message,
Yeah.
it would be about empathy and understanding,
Okay.
between people from different backgrounds and cultures.
Mm-hmm.
I'd send it to everyone,
Wow.
everywhere.
That's beautiful.
I think it could help bridge divides,
Yeah.
make the world a little more peaceful.
A little more compassionate.
Exactly.
It reminds us that persuasive writing,
Yeah.
it's not just about getting what we want.
No, it's not.
It's about making a difference
It can be.
in the world.
It can.
Okay, so much to think about.
I know.
We're almost out of time for today.
Okay.
It's amazing how persuasive writing can be used for like all sorts of things.
It really is.
Selling products, promoting social change.
Right.
It's a powerful tool.
Powerful. And like any tool,
Yeah,
it can be used for good or bad.
that's true.
We have to be mindful of that.
Yeah, the ethical side of it.
Exactly. Just because we can persuade someone
Right.
doesn't mean we should.
It's about using that power responsibly.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important
Yeah.
to understand your audience and your purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what are you actually trying to do?
Right, what's the goal?
Are you informing, educating, inspiring, or just entertaining?
So many possibilities.
Once you know your purpose,
Yeah.
you can figure out the best way to achieve it.
I'm realizing persuasive writing is more than just tricks and techniques.
It is.
It's about connecting with your audience.
Yeah.
Understanding them.
Understanding their needs, what motivates them.
Yeah, and presenting your ideas in a way that like speaks to them.
Exactly. You want your writing to resonate with them.
It's about building trust.
Right. Building a connection.
And that takes time.
It does. It's not something that happens overnight.
Well, this deep dive has given me a lot to think about.
Good. I'm glad.
I'm excited to try out some of these things in my own writing.
You should. And remember, the best way to get better
Yeah.
is to practice.
Practice, practice, practice.
Write every day, even if it's just for a few minutes.
Okay.
Try different techniques, play around with connectors.
Experiment.
Exactly. See what works for you.
Okay. Any last words of wisdom?
Yes. Find your voice.
Okay.
Be authentic. Write with passion.
Because
The most persuasive writing
Yeah.
comes from the heart.
that's beautiful.
Thank you.
Well, that brings us to the end of our deep dive
It does.
into persuasive writing.
Time flies.
I hope everyone listening
Me too.
learned a lot
It was fun.
and had some fun along the way.
Yes.
Remember, the power of persuasion is
Yeah.
in your hands.
Use it wisely.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and we'll catch you next time for another fascinating exploration. Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. Today, we're talking all about how to nail those job interviews in English.
Okay.
We've got this awesome guide, right?
Yes.
And it's got like over 50 phrases, but we're going to go deeper. We're not just going to read the phrases to you. We want to like really understand why they work and how you can use them to just really shine. You know what I mean?
It's all about that authenticity, right?
Yeah.
It's understanding what's behind the phrase.
Yeah.
Why is it effective? And then how do you use it? So it's not just you're like this robot spitting out these phrases.
Yeah. Okay, so let's start at the beginning. You walk in the door, you sit down, you've got that first impression, you've got the greeting and the intro. How important is this part?
It's crucial. It's like the first few seconds can really set the tone for the rest of the interview.
Okay, and this guide has some interesting phrases here. Like one of them is, I've been looking forward to discussing how my skills align with this position. So, I mean, does that little tweak really make that much of a difference?
Yeah, it does. It does, because instead of just saying, like, hi, nice to meet you, you're already indicating that you're here to provide value, that you've thought about this, you've done your research, you understand what their needs are, and you're already positioning yourself as someone who can contribute to meeting those needs.
So it's not just about finding a job, it's about helping them with their problems almost.
Exactly. It shows that you've thought about this beyond just looking at their website for 2 minutes.
Yeah, right. Okay, so we've aced the greeting. Now comes the dreaded, tell me about yourself. And I feel like people just default to summarizing their resume.
Yeah, they tend to just kind of go through like,
Yeah.
a laundry list.
Right.
And it's like a missed opportunity. This is your chance to actually tell a story.
Oh.
Think about those key skills and experiences that you have that align with this role and that make you unique.
So instead of just saying, I have 5 years of experience in marketing, what would be a better way to say that?
Yeah, so you can actually use an example from the guide, which is, I'm a highly motivated marketing professional with 5 years of experience crafting and executing successful digital campaigns. So you're already giving them something concrete.
Oh, I like that. It paints a picture.
Exactly. Instead of just listing, you're actually showcasing the impact you've had.
I see. Okay. So moving on, we start getting into like the skills and strengths. And I feel like this is where people either exaggerate or just use vague language.
Yeah.
Like, I'm really good at this.
Exactly.
And you're like, okay, well, good. Doesn't mean anything to me.
Right. And that's where this guide really stresses using action-oriented verbs. Things like proficient in or, excel at, demonstrated ability to, because you're actually showing, not just telling
Yeah.
what you can do.
Yeah, and it has some great examples here. Like, I'm proficient in using tools like Python, Tableau, and SQL for data visualization and analysis.
Yeah.
That sounds so much more impactful than just saying, I'm good with data.
Exactly. Because now you're being specific. You're using their language.
Yeah.
You're checking off those boxes on their, what they're looking for.
Yeah.
Wish list.
Right. And especially in today's job market where it's so competitive, you really need to make it clear that you've got the goods.
You have those skills that they're looking for.
Okay, so we've talked about ourselves, we've talked about our skills. Now I got to dive into like our work experience. How do we get beyond just like listing our job titles and what we did at each place?
This is where I really like that the guide talks about the STAR method. Have you heard of this?
I have, but I don't know if our listeners have.
Okay, so STAR stands for situation, task, action, result.
Okay.
And it's really helpful because it gives you a framework for telling these stories that showcase your achievements.
Right.
So instead of saying, I was responsible for project management, you can actually give a specific example.
Yeah.
So in my previous role at, Company X, I managed a complex software implementation project, leading a team of 5 to successfully deliver the project under budget and ahead of schedule.
Oh, I like that. So it's not just a task anymore. It's a whole story.
Exactly. It's a story with a beginning, middle, and end. And it also highlights all those great things that you did.
Right.
Leadership, delivering results.
Yeah. And the guide really stresses the importance of using quantifiable results. Like, don't just say, I improved sales. Say, I increased sales by 20%.
Exactly. The numbers are powerful.
They make it real.
Yes.
Okay, so now we come to the part that everybody dreads, talking about weaknesses and challenges. This guide has a rather interesting take on this. What is it?
Well, it emphasizes honesty and growth. So instead of trying to hide your weaknesses or pretend they don't exist, it's about framing them as areas you're actively improving. So instead of saying, oh, I'm a bit disorganized sometimes, you can say something like, one area I'm working on is improving my time management skills. To address this, I've started using a project management tool to prioritize tasks and track deadlines.
Oh, so you're turning it into a positive.
Exactly. You're acknowledging the weakness, but you're showing self-awareness and a proactive approach.
Yeah, that you're willing to actually work on yourself.
Exactly.
And I think that's something employers really appreciate.
Absolutely. It shows you're committed to continuous learning and growth.
Okay, so we've laid all this groundwork. Now we're getting towards the end of the interview, and we have a chance to ask some questions. This isn't just about sitting there waiting for them to wrap up. This is our chance to interview them, right?
Exactly. It's a two-way street.
So the guide here, it suggests some questions like, can you tell me more about the team I'd be working with? Now that seems pretty basic. What makes a question like that effective?
Well, you're going beyond just the responsibilities.
Hmm.
Right. You're trying to get a sense of the company culture. What are the team dynamics like?
Okay.
Do they value collaboration? What are the communication styles like? And that can tell you a lot.
So it's like reading between the lines of the job description. You're not just thinking about what you're going to be doing, you're thinking about who you're going to be doing it with.
Exactly. You're going to be spending 40 plus hours a week with these people.
Right, right. Okay, and another question that it suggests is, what does a typical day look like for someone in this role? Again, seems pretty basic. What's good about that one?
Well, it shows that you're thinking practically, right?
Okay.
About the day-to-day realities of the job.
Yeah, and I like that one because it helps you kind of picture yourself.
Yes.
Like, am I going to be in meetings all day? Am I going to be like heads down at my computer?
Exactly. And then you can gauge whether the work style aligns with your preferences. Another great question the guide suggests is, how does this role contribute to the company's overall goals?
Oh, I like that one.
So again, you're showing that you're not just there for a paycheck. You're thinking big picture. How can your work make a meaningful impact?
Right, like, I'm here to help you achieve your mission.
Yes, exactly.
But is there a risk of sounding too ambitious or overstepping with a question like that?
Not if it's genuine. Most employers appreciate when candidates are genuinely interested in the company's mission and how their role fits in.
Okay, so it's about finding that balance between being ambitious but also realistic.
Right.
Okay, so now we're wrapping up. How do we make sure we leave a really good final impression?
So the guide talks about expressing gratitude, reiterating your interest, but making sure it's authentic.
Okay, so not just the typical, like, thank you for your time.
Exactly.
What's something better?
You can say something like, I appreciate the opportunity to learn more about this role and how my skills can contribute to your team. So you're being more specific.
Right, so you're summarizing what you've learned and also connecting it back to how you can help them.
Exactly. And then if you want to go a step further, you can even offer to provide additional information.
Okay.
Like, please let me know if you need any further details about my experience or qualifications.
Okay.
But frame it as a genuine offer, not a demand.
Right, right. You don't want to come across as desperate.
Exactly.
Okay, so confidence but not arrogance.
Exactly. Those closing moments are just as important as the opening.
Right. All right, we've covered a lot of ground here, from like the minute you walk in the door to the minute you say goodbye. But this guide is more than just like a list of phrases to memorize, right?
Absolutely. It's about understanding the underlying principles of communication and applying those to the job interview.
So it's not just about what you say, it's about how you say it.
Exactly. It's about finding that balance between using these proven techniques and letting your authentic self shine through.
Well, that brings up another point, which is like authenticity, right? This guide keeps emphasizing the importance of being yourself. But how do you balance that with, you still want to come across as professional?
Yeah.
Where's the line?
Right.
How do you walk that tightrope?
Yeah. I mean, think about it this way. You can use the phrases and the techniques to help structure your responses.
Yeah.
And to highlight those strengths. But the content should come from a genuine place.
Oh, okay. So it's like you're using the guide as like a foundation.
Yes.
But then you're building on top of it.
Exactly. Like, let's say they ask you to describe a time you faced a challenge at work.
Yeah.
You could use that STAR method that we talked about.
Right.
To structure your answer.
Yeah.
But the specific challenge you choose to talk about and how you overcame it, that should come from your real life experience.
Right, right. So it's like you're using the tools.
Yes.
But then you're also letting your personality show through.
Exactly. Like, imagine you're at a dinner party and someone asks you about your work. You wouldn't just recite a list of phrases.
Right. You tell them a story.
Yeah, you tell a story, you talk about what you're passionate about.
Right.
It would be a natural conversation.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of energy you want to bring to an interview.
I see. So it's like being yourself, but like the best version of yourself.
Exactly. Because interviewers, they're not just looking for, someone who can do the job. They're also looking for someone who's going to be a good fit for their team.
Right. A cultural fit.
Exactly. So they want to know if you'd be a good addition, not just like a robot who can do the tasks.
Right. Okay. So really it's about being prepared, being professional, but also being genuine and enthusiastic.
Exactly. The guide is a great resource, for learning how to articulate those thoughts and experiences effectively.
Right.
But ultimately, it's your unique personality and passion that's going to make you stand out.
Okay. So I think to wrap up this deep dive into acing job interviews in English, the key takeaway is this. Master the techniques, use the phrases, but infuse them with your own personality and your own experience.
Well said. And don't be afraid to practice.
Oh, yeah.
The more you practice these phrases and you tailor them to your own stories, the more confident and authentic you're going to feel when that big day comes.
Right, right. Well, to all of our listeners out there who are preparing for the next big interview, we hope this has given you some valuable tools. Go out there, be yourself, and good luck. We'll see you next time for another deep dive.
Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. You guys wanted to learn all about negotiation and persuasion, so that's what we're doing today. But get this, our source material. It's a script for teaching English as a second language.
Yeah, pretty unexpected, right?
I know. But honestly, I'm thinking this different angle could make things really interesting. Maybe even give us a fresh take on like classic techniques and stuff.
Totally. And you know what else is cool about this script? They make a clear distinction between negotiation and persuasion right off the bat, which I think a lot of people kind of use interchangeably.
Oh, for sure. Like I always thought they were basically the same thing.
Well, here they're saying negotiation is all about finding an agreement. Whereas persuasion, that's more about influencing someone to think or do something specific.
Yeah, that actually makes a lot of sense. So it's less about compromise and more about getting them to come around to your side.
Exactly. It's like, imagine you're trying to buy a car, right? Negotiation's the back and forth on price. But persuasion is convincing the seller that your offer is the best one, even if it's not the highest.
Okay, so knowing which one you're dealing with is key. Gotcha. Well, let's get into the nitty-gritty. What kind of strategies does this script recommend?
One big one is preparation, like really doing your homework. They even talk about researching the other person's past negotiations or looking for weaknesses in their usual arguments.
So it's like knowing your opponent in a chess match.
Exactly. But even if you don't know much about the person, you can still prepare. This script suggests figuring out their needs and goals. Like, what are they really trying to achieve?
That's smart, because once you know what they want, you can figure out how to give it to them in a way that also works for you, right?
Exactly. It's about finding that win-win.
Love it. Okay, this script also mentioned something called anchoring. What's that all about?
Ah, yeah. Anchoring. That's a classic. It's basically setting a high starting point in the negotiation. Like, you ask for more than you actually expect to get.
Ooh, sneaky. But why?
It's all about setting the frame, right? Makes any counteroffers seem more reasonable by comparison.
So, if I'm selling something, I start with a price that's a bit high, knowing it'll probably come down a little.
Exactly. And they even gave this example about a salary negotiation. You could say something like, based on my research, I was thinking more along the lines of $80,000.
Bold. But what if they just, laugh you out of the room?
Well, that's why you got to find that sweet spot. Be ambitious but believable. Have a solid reason for that initial number you throw out.
Right.
Yeah.
Don't want to seem delusional. Okay, what else? Any other cool tactics in this script?
You know what they emphasize that I find interesting? The power of silence.
Silence.
Yeah.
After you make an offer, just be quiet. Let the other person respond first.
Yes, that can make people uncomfortable. And then maybe they blurt out something.
That's the idea. This script connects it to something called loss aversion. People hate losing more than they like winning, So silence kind of creates that potential for loss.
Oh, I get it. So if I don't say anything, they're worried I'm going to walk away.
Exactly. Subtle but effective.
Wow, I like it. This script even gives an actual dialogue example.
Oh yeah, what is it?
It's about a job interview, and you say, based on my research, I believe a salary of $70,000 is fair for this role. And they're like, that's higher than we were thinking. And then you just pause.
Ooh, I love it. That silence speaks volumes.
Right. So much better than immediately lowering your ask. Okay, so we've got preparation, anchoring, and the silent treatment. What else did this script have to say about negotiation?
Oh, they also talk about knowing when to walk away.
Ooh, that's a tough one.
It is, but sometimes it's the best move.
If they're just not budging and you're not getting what you need.
Exactly. Got to know your worth, right?
For sure. Okay, so we've covered some solid negotiation tactics, but what about persuasion?
Ah, yes. Persuasion. This script had some fun stuff on that too.
I'm ready. Hit me with your best persuasive tips.
Well, one they highlight is the rule of reciprocity. You ever notice how, if someone does something nice, you kind of feel obligated to do something nice back?
Oh, totally. If a friend helps me move, I'm definitely buying them dinner.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
That's reciprocity. And it can be really powerful for persuasion. The script suggests, doing a small favor before making your request.
So like butter them up a bit first.
In a way, yeah. Could be something small like sharing some helpful info or just being supportive.
Okay, so it's like creating a sense of, I owe you one.
Yeah, exactly. People naturally want to return favors.
Makes sense. What else?
Another technique they talk about is appealing to emotions.
Ooh, interesting. Because logic doesn't always win the day, right?
Nope. Humans are emotional creatures.
Yeah.
And this script really emphasized storytelling as a way to connect on that level.
Oh, I love that. A good story can really change people's minds.
For sure. But it's got to be authentic. The script warns against being manipulative.
Right, don't want to guilt trip anyone.
Exactly. It's about sharing genuine stories that resonate with people.
So like instead of just stating facts, weave them into a compelling narrative.
Exactly. It's way more impactful. They even gave an example about creating urgency.
Ooh, like those limited time offer things.
Yeah, like this discount ends Friday, so act fast.
Oh, I fall for those all the time.
It's effective, creates that fear of missing out.
Totally. Speaking of effective, what about social proof? This script mentioned that too, right?
They did. Social proof is all about showing that other people are already doing what you want them to do.
Oh, right, like online reviews. If something has tons of 5-star reviews, I'm way more likely to buy it.
Exactly. We look to others to guide our decisions, especially when we're unsure.
So how can we use that for persuasion?
Well, the script suggests showcasing testimonials, positive reviews, anything that shows others have benefited.
It's like saying, hey, everyone else loves this. You will too.
Exactly. It taps into that desire to fit in.
Makes sense. Okay, so we've got some powerful persuasive techniques here, but I'm guessing it's not all about the tricks.
Definitely not. The script also emphasizes staying calm and confident.
Right, because if you seem nervous or unsure, people pick up on that.
Absolutely. It's about believing in what you're saying.
I love that. So much of this comes down to just being genuine.
Yeah, and a big part of that is active listening.
So it's not just about talking AT people, it's about understanding them.
Right. The script talks about paraphrasing to confirm you understand, asking clarifying questions.
Shows you're actually engaged, not just waiting for your turn to talk.
Exactly. And one final point they made, which I think is important, following up afterwards.
Even if you don't reach an agreement right away.
Yep. Just a quick email summarizing, thanking them for their time.
Keeps the door open. I like it. This has been such a fascinating deep dive.
It really has. Who knew an English language learning script could be so insightful?
Seriously, we've covered so much.
Lots of practical stuff in there.
And our listener wanted to become a master negotiator, so I think we're giving them the tip.
For sure. The script had a great point about practice, too.
Right. It's one thing to know the techniques, but gotta actually use them.
Yeah. They even suggest role-playing with a friend.
Get some reps in.
Yeah.
Makes sense. So for our listener who's eager to put all this into action, what's the biggest takeaway?
I'd say it's to approach negotiation and persuasion strategically. It's not about being slick or manipulative. It's about understanding the psychology.
And practicing.
Exactly. So to our listener, now that you have these tools, think about it. What situation are you going to use them in first? How are you going to tailor them to your goals?
Such a good question. We want to hear all about it. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. Until next time, keep learning and keep leveling up.
Yeah, and they had a good point at the end, too, about practice.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Practice is key.
Right. It's one thing to, know about these techniques, but you got to actually use them.
Totally. It's like anything else,
Yeah.
The more you do it, the better you get.
Exactly. And this script even suggests, role-playing.
Oh, that's a good idea. Like practice with a friend or something.
Yeah, exactly. So you can get comfortable with the techniques before you use them in a real situation.
Smart. Okay, so for our listener who's, ready to become a negotiation superstar, what's the most important thing they should remember from all this?
That's a good question. I think the key takeaway is that negotiation and persuasion, they're skills.
Yeah, not just some magic tricks.
Right. It's not about manipulating people. It's about understanding the psychology behind it all.
And preparation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Preparation is huge.
Knowing your stuff, knowing the other person, knowing what you want.
Exactly. And then, of course, practice.
Can't forget the practice. All right, so to our awesome listener out there, you wanted to know all about negotiation and persuasion. And I think we delivered.
I hope so. We covered a lot of ground today.
We did. And honestly, I learned a ton myself.
Me too. Always good to refresh those skills, right?
Absolutely. So, listener, now that you have all these tools in your toolbox, what are you going to do with them?
Yeah. What situation are you going to try them out in first? How are you going to make them work for you?
Ooh, that's a challenge. Let us know how it goes, okay? Thanks so much for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.